for the minutes. Hi, Raquel, how are you? You're muted.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hello, hello. How you doing, Sarkis? How you doing, Peter? You're muted. Everybody's muted.
Yes. Good morning, Yvonne. How are you? I mean, good afternoon. Yeah. And I see you've got your bike there in your office.
I did.
Carefully, strategically placed in back of you for the camera.
Yep. All about multimodal.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the former traffic engineer for Ventura always typically would have his bike in his office. And he found it handy to ride over to their, out in the field to check on various, issues.
It's a good prop.
Mhm.
Welcome, Michael.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, I just reached out to Laura Pennebaker. You'll be presenting, giving us a report on general permits.
Yes.
And I do know your time is limited, so we'll have you go after the local streets and roads report from Gabriel Gutierrez as part of item number 4.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I'm available till 3 o'clock or so. So.
Yeah, we'll just throw you in with the committee reports and other reports.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Those in attendance, do you want me to keep this screen here or do you want me to share the agenda? If you have the agenda, it makes no difference to me. Everybody is muted, so if you're going to speak, please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Jennifer.
Yvonne, we're not ignoring you. Some of us are just finishing lunch.
You want to keep this screen or do you want to see the agenda?
I've got my agenda printed out. I don't
All
see
right.
you need to have it on the screen,
I
but
can keep
other
this.
people may want it.
Sarkis?
I'd like to see your face, Yvonne, so no agenda.
But John has sent, John, I can't see what the logo is. It's too little.
Oh, our SCAG logo on the upper right?
No, not that logo, the logo on your shirt, of
Oh,
course.
it's my Guru Pony baseball shirt. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
my baseball shirt. Yes.
Good to see you, John.
Good to see you, everybody. Hey, Yvonne. I see
All
Sarkis.
right.
Yvonne,
Yes.
Yvonne, this is Dawn. I'm just wondering at introductions if I can take a moment.
Sure. All right, it's 2 o'clock and Everybody knows I like to start right at 2 and be respectful of everybody's time. I will not go through introductions, but if you are speaking, please introduce yourself just to make it a little easier in the preparation of the meeting minutes. Dawn, do you want to?
Yes, Dawn Batiste with Sandag, and I wanted to take this opportunity at our final meeting of the fiscal year to thank you, Yvonne, for your role as our moderator in one of the stranger years that we've all participated in. And in a year that was really quite busy with a lot of, critical policy discussions to be had, including CAPTI and, this finalizing this cycle of SB1 during a really odd COVID year. And I just wanted to thank you, and we appreciate your leadership through this last year. And thank you for being a good role model for me as I take over for next year. So I just wanted to acknowledge your hard work for us and tell you thank you very much.
All right, your 1 minute's up. All right, let's get back to the meeting. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Thank you all. Any additions or changes to the agenda? We are going to add one item, some general permits discussion as part of the RTPA committee reports from Caltrans. And also, as part of the agenda item number 9, Caltrans update, we do have an additional item that Robert Peterson will be talking about, 2021 earmark repurposing status. So that is new. Other than that, I don't have any other changes. Anybody here want to add or change anything? All right, let's get the ball rolling. Agenda item number 3 is just the approval or acceptance of the meeting minutes from the last RTPA meeting back in May. Any comments or corrections? I'll take them as accepted. Thank you, Don. RTPA committee and other reports. We'll start off with Jennifer Solis.
Thank you. Hi, yes, Jennifer Solis with Fresno COG. We attended our first SHSP committee meeting, and we are still getting up to speed on things, but for the last meeting, they did present 4 challenge area reports on pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcyclists, and emergency response. Along with they presented some SHSP traffic safety fact sheets, and the fact sheets will provide traffic safety stakeholders with visual summary of the safety data related to key issues in California. There was actually some really interesting information on those fact sheets, and right now they're still in draft form, but they will be available on the website once they're finalized. They are working on integrating equity in the SHSP through their guiding principles and overarching structure, action development criteria and evaluation, committee representation and team memberships, and engagement and outreach activities. So with that being said, the steering committee did approve a proposed change to the steering committee membership to add UCSD Treads as the pedestrian focused advisory member. And then the executive leadership committee will vote to approve that on at their September meeting. So the next SHSP e-newsletter will be distributed in the next week or so. So look out for that email. I'll send that through the RTPA group. And then we have a few more meetings coming up, 2 in July and 2 in August. And they added extra meetings just to prepare for the executive leadership committee meeting that will be on September 16th. That is all I have, and congrats, Yvonne, on a great year. Thanks for helping us this year.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. All right, any questions for Jennifer? Anybody? And thank you, Jennifer and Fresno COG, for stepping up, because it is a 2-person tag team, with you and the executive director. So really appreciate it, as well as the other folks who are serving on these committees. Thank you.
No problem.
Next up, Patricia. Maybe not. All right. Gabriel, I'm surprised Patricia's not there. Hey, Sarkis, can you ping Patricia?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Gabriel, are you up?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. Hey, so good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to share just a few brief items regarding the local streets and roads needs assessment report. Yvonne provided the final pavement condition index spreadsheet as part of the RTPA agenda. So just real quick, that the spreadsheet shows the PCI for each county and every city within the various counties. Some of you also expressed interest, I believe, at the last RTPA meeting to receive the individual county PCI maps. Those can actually be extracted as PDFs from the report itself. However, if you would like a GIS map format, the consultant said you can contact them directly and they can forward that information to you. So that's all I have. Next meeting of the local streets and roads subcommittee is going to be this Thursday. So whatever we get from that, I'll go ahead and report that back to the group in August. And that's all I have.
All right.
Hey, Gabriel, this is Alicia Sequoia Smith with the CTC. I was wondering, is there another spreadsheet where we can see what the previously reported PCIs are from the 2018 study and do a comparison?
I can certainly find out from the consultant if they have that available. And if I do get that, I can go ahead and forward that to the moderator to get out to the group.
That would be wonderful, because I know a lot of the cities and counties have actually contacted us to see where they can find that information, and we don't have that for them. So
Yeah.
if something like that could be made available, that would be amazing.
It's probably, it would probably be in the 2018 report as well, if anybody has access to that. But I'll go ahead and check with the consultant anyways and see what I can get and then get out to the group.
Yeah, the past reports are, this is Dawn at Sandag, the past reports should all be available to be found on savecaliforniastreets.org.
Nice comment, Alicia. Yeah, it'd be nice to see us side by side. All right, any other comments? Patricia, are you with us? All right, we'll table that. General permits, Michael, I know you are here. There you are.
Thank you. So my name is Michael Quigley. I'm the executive director with the California Alliance for Jobs. The Alliance for Jobs is a labor management partnership. We represent the Associated General Contractors, United Contractors, as well as the laborers, operators, and carpenters unions. And our mission is really go out and support infrastructure, project delivery, funding, public works funding. We've done many of the big ballot measures and many of the local sales tax measures across the state, and are really now focused on this issue of the construction general permit. And just to give you a little bit of background, because this is not an issue that comes up very frequently. In fact, the permit itself is on a 10-year issuance. So the last time that the state adopted a permit was 2009. The construction general permit is the permit that governs the stormwater discharge on all private and public construction projects that are 1 acre or more in footprint. So essentially every transportation project is going to have an impact, for maybe some smaller like road resurfacing projects would be excluded, but any kind of serious transportation project, will have an input, will have a greater than 1 acre footprint. So this is going to have massive impacts to Caltrans, massive impacts to locals. And the changes in the permit as currently proposed have a significant alteration of how the permit has currently been structured. Currently, the permit follows a best management practices model where there are certain positive controls that you try and put on a job site and to help mitigate the sediment and silt and things like that from running off into the water supply. And this is something that we feel has been working very successfully over the last decade. It's working for project owners. You take these active prevention measures, you know that you're in compliance with the permit. You've done the things required to try and prevent this discharge. What the new permit proposes is that we'll begin to move away from the BMP model and start to add in something called numeric effluent limits. And the NELs are essentially a discharge of the water that is coming off of a job site. And depending on what part of the state you're in, This discharge will be measured and quantified, looking for different types of pollutants, different types of sediments, different types of metals, whatever they feel in that region is the most important things to track. And so what will happen is if you then test outside of the allowed limitation of discharge, you will, the job site, the contractor, the project owner will automatically be given a notice of violation under this new permit. And so what you'll have is now the State Water Board potentially taking enforcement action against locals or the regional water boards in many cases. But, you know, importantly from the contractor side, you know, you don't want to get those notice of violations because that impacts your ability to bid on future work. And so there's a lot of downside to how they want to structure the NELs. Now, in particular, as it would impact transportation, there's an even another layer of this. You know, there's a lot of folks who are worried about the housing, school construction impacts as well. We're working closely with those people, but we're very focused on transportation impacts. And some of the things that they're including in the metal-based NELs are copper and zinc. Copper and zinc are commonly found elements of brake pad dust. So nearly every single transportation project is going to start with a high level of background copper and zinc already there. That's not going to be accounted for in this permitting. Additionally, no transportation project will not be able to halt the additional inclusion of more pollutants into the job site because of the ongoing traffic right away and how you have to share. So you're going to have more copper and zinc being added onto these job sites. This is creating what we believe is a path to non-compliance. Essentially, the project owner, the contractor, whoever is going to be found at fault for this by the water board is going to be in basically like a perpetual negative feedback loop of fines and escalations. And because they're moving to this method where it's just all about what's running off your job site, it doesn't give consideration for if you're even the source of it. So that is something we're very concerned about, how the shifting of this permit structures and changes the liability and responsibility. Our industry is working with a technical group that has some of our biggest contractors, Granite Construction, Tyker, Flatiron, Skanska, Hewitt, are all working on some ideas where we're going to try and provide some alternative proposals that we think could expand upon the BMP model, could help improve California's water quality, and doesn't require us to go to this new NEL method. I think it's also important for the folks in this room to know that the State Water Board staff is the one that's driving this. They're the ones who are escalating the permit, rewriting it with this numeric effluent limit approach. There is no requirement under the Federal Clean Water Act. There is no state legislative requirement. There is no legal decision that is pushing us in this direction. And even the Biden administration has subsequently come out with their own federal, under the federal EPA, their own stormwater discharge guidelines for states that don't have delegated authority under the Clean Water Act. The federal EPA still issues these construction discharge permits. Well, in the latest round of permits, latest draft permit issued by the Biden administration does not include this numeric effluent limit either. So this is something I think that we'd like to activate folks around. We'd like to get locals and regional transportation agencies learning more about this, weighing in with the State Water Board. This, I think, is going to be something that will become an increasingly bigger issue between now and the end of the year. The timeline that the State Water Board has internally adopted would be towards essentially before the end of this year, like roughly November timeframe, they would do an adoption hearing on this. So the first public informational hearing is on August 4th, and then there'll be hearings probably in September and again in October with an adoption hearing in November. Is roughly the timeline they have right now. Caltrans has already had multiple conversations with the State Water Board that I'm aware of, have shared some concerns. Another big concern that Caltrans has raised with the Water Board, which will also impact locals, is there is no grandfathering in of the existing permit, so that whatever projects you guys have in your permitting and pipeline and your funding pipelines, those permits are not going to be allowed to carry over past the proposed implementation date, which is currently October 1st of 2022. So essentially next year's rainy season would be the start of this new permit, and whatever was not underway by that date would then have to go back and get a new construction general permit issued under the new terms. So a lot is at stake for us in the transportation world. We're very concerned about the costs, the liability, and generally the impact it will have on project delivery at a state and local level, and definitely asking for more awareness and more involvement and more comments from locals on this issue, as we think it's one of the most important things that's going to be impacting the transportation construction industry between now and the end of the year. So with that, I will turn it over to any questions for folks, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any questions for Michael? Anybody?
Sure, okay, so this is Peter DeHaan from Matura. Michael, do you have is there any kind of a fact sheet that we can use to help explain some of this, or maybe information on where like the process for submitting comments or suggested action steps or something like that?
Yeah, we do have a fact sheet. I can talk to Laura and we'll figure out a way to get that out to the group. It's definitely written more from the construction industry perspective, but the concerns would be applicable to the public side as well. The State Water Board currently has not the only meeting we have scheduled right now is this August 4th hearing. That's on the State Water Board website. There is a page dedicated to the construction general permit on the State Water Board website. However, the reason we know about this other timeline, and I will share with Laura, I know you have it as well. Potentially, we can share this Caltrans PowerPoint that they put together. It's only 5 or 6 slides, and within that PowerPoint, it lists Caltrans maybe 5 or 6 biggest concerns. And it also has the draft timeline. The only reason we know the timeline that they're internally operating under, they haven't publicly told us, but they did tell that to Caltrans, and Caltrans, I guess, sketched it out on their own and then made their own slide about it. So that's what we know in terms of the timeline. But as of right now, the only scheduled hearing is for August 4th. And then there's a written comment deadline that I believe is August 13th, like a week later. So that is all on the website for the State Water Board under the construction general permit.
Okay.
This is Tim Sobelman. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Tim Sobelman, Chief Engineer of the CTC. I just wanted to also mention that Caltrans will be providing an update at the June CTC meeting on kind of the general overview of the proposed revisions on the CGP, as well as a couple of their concerns. And I believe that they'll have some information as part of that, which describes the process timeline wise.
Okay, thanks for that.
Tune in.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none. Michael, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time today, folks. Appreciate your good work on delivering projects wherever you may be in the state. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is Patricia with us? Did you hear back from her, Sarkis?
Mr. Moderator, no, I did not.
Well, thank you. All right, moving on. FHWA update. Do we have Paul or Antonio? Who said they were going to be here? Do you see him? Nope. Keeping it moving. Tony Dang, are you with us?
I am
Here you
here.
are.
Can you hear me?
All right. Yes. CalSTA update, filling in for Darwin. Thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Tony Dang, Sustainability Program Manager in the Caltrans Director's Office, here to provide an update on the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, or CAPTI, on behalf of CalSTA. So as you all know, the public review period for the draft CAPTI ended last month on May 19th. So first and foremost, I just wanted to thank all of you and your teams for the time and effort and energy that you spent reviewing the draft CAPTI and providing input onto it. Over the 10-week review period, we received roughly 64 comment letters representing over 130 agencies, organizations, and individuals. And in addition to hearing from all of you, we also heard from local cities and counties, councils of governments, transit and rail operators, folks from the private sector, in labor, business orgs, ports, as well as a number of folks from non-governmental organizations representing a range of issues. So as you can imagine, we received a lot of feedback, and in teasing apart the letters that we received, in addition to the comments that were received during the CTC workshops back in March, we were dealing with roughly a universe of about 800 comments to address. And so we sat down and comprehensively and systematically reviewed and developed responses to all those comments that we've received. All the comment letters have been remediated for accessibility and are currently publicly posted on the CalSTA website. In addition to the source comment letters themselves, after the final CAPTI is released next month, CalSTA intends to post our internal comment log detailing the responses to every single comment that has been received. To make it easier and to help folks kind of see the universe of feedback that we've been receiving, we worked to develop a summary memo to synthesize the key themes of the comments that folks submitted, as well as how agency is planning to address those comments. So this synthesis memo was posted to the CalSTA website, as well as this month's CTC meeting materials. The memo also includes a comprehensive list at the end of the memo outlining all of the changes that agency is committing to making to the document. In terms of next steps, there is an informational item that Darwin will be presenting on the CAPTI and the revisions memo tomorrow. And after that, agency is planning to meet the July 15th deadline for finalizing CAPTI per the executive order. The memo itself is, we tried to make it as short as possible given the volume of comments, but it's about 20 pages, so I'm not going to spend time running down that in depth. It's online, but happy to answer any questions that you may all have at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Any questions?
Yvonne?
Yes, sir. Sarkis.
Tony, thank you so much for the update and for providing that memo. I definitely also appreciated the way you guys organized the feedback you received and categorized it. So there's the one section about need for flexibility in implementation due to geographic differences. And it states that CAPTI will include clarifications around the applicability of induced travel and VMT metrics in different contexts, particularly highlighting how existing induced travel congestion or travel research and tools mainly apply to urbanized regions. So I don't know if you don't have an answer today, I totally get it, but will the final CAPTI give a little bit more context in terms of what an urbanized region is moving forward?
Yeah, so we are currently working to draft those. So there's actually going to be kind of two sections, two brand new sections. One on this issue around highway vehicle capacity expansion and induced travel and urbanized regions, and then a whole new section on kind of the overall applicability of the CAPTI framework within more rural communities and what sustainable transportation solutions might look like in rural communities. I will make a note of that to Darwin that we should make sure to kind of clarify what we mean by urbanized areas.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I have a comment just really quickly. Let me see if I can get my camera to work. It's Adrienne. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Tony. Thank you. I also appreciated how well organized the comments were and the categorization and the response. There was one comment made by OCTA, which I couldn't really find a clear connection in the comments that were provided. And it just had to do with transit operations and needing long-term funding for transit operations. I think, the programs that we've identified or that have been identified through the CAPTI are primarily support capital. And I think there's an encouragement for expansion, but in order for some of the transit agencies to really, in a fiscally conservative or a fiscally responsible is probably a better way to put it, way to do those types of expansion, we need to have long-term transit operating funding. So I just wanted to point out, I didn't really see where it was specifically noted. I know that there was a comment about, generally agencies were supportive of transit, but I didn't see that particular comment identified. So I just wanted to share that because I do think it's important and it probably needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrian. I definitely remember the comments. So the memo, because it's kind of a summary roll-up in terms of the big themes, we really tried to focus on pulling out those themes that we heard from multiple stakeholders making the same message. So that's why it's not kind of explicitly called out there. I think in terms of your specific comment, as I mentioned, agency plans to kind of release the full log. So I believe there's a response there directly addressing that comment. And if there's not, I will double check.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else? Going once, twice. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Appreciate it. Bill Higgins, I don't think will be joining us until after 2:30. Unless you're here, Bill, and I don't see you. And Paul Schneider with FHWA, I don't think. All right, CTC updates. State and Fed legislative matters. Paul, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, get us going.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. State and federal legislative matters. We're not recommending any positions on bills at this meeting, but I did want to just bring to your attention a couple of bills that affect the commission or its programs. I think I've mentioned these in the past so that you're aware of them. So there is SB 640, which would explicitly authorize in statute the ability of cities and counties to jointly fund projects using their SB 1 local streets and roads funding apportionments. And that bill is continuing to move forward. It passed the Senate and is in the Assembly. We had worked with the author's office to get some clarifying amendments to make it easier for us to implement, and we don't have any concerns with that one. There's also SB 671, which would require the commission to perform a clean freight corridor assessment. And this bill, which would, the assessment would be used to inform different freight funding programs. So for us, it would be the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program. We have been trying to get some clarifying amendments for this one. We don't have a position on any of these bills. Just to clarify some of the language regarding the how the assessment would inform our programs. We want to make sure that the TCEP stays a competitive program. Part of the assessment would be identifying specific projects. So we're just hoping to get some clarification there. And then the other thing that this bill does is it codifies some of the TCEP guidelines regarding eligibility of charging stations and as well as funding mitigation. And we're also trying to get some clarifying amendments that any mitigation funding has to be tied to a specific transportation project.
What was the
And
number on that? SB 2?
that one's 671 by
671. Thank you.
Senator Gonzalez, yeah. And then there's AB 1147 by Assemblymember Friedman. That one would, part of that bill would require Caltrans to develop a bike highway pilot proposal and submit it to the commission for review. And then the commission would identify fund sources, potential fund sources for it. And the last one that I was going to mention is SB 726 by Senator Gonzalez. This bill would have CARB and the Energy Commission create a sustainable transportation strategy that would essentially, for the entire transportation sector, so for both the infrastructure programs and the vehicle programs, set different goals and targets related to GHG emissions reductions. And this bill, we've had some discussions with the author's office. We're trying to understand, I guess, the extent to which it may or may not already duplicate a lot of the efforts that have been underway with CAPTI, as well as a lot of the planning that CARB does in its scoping plan. So we've been having some conversations just to better understand the intent of that one. And I will stop there and can take any questions anyone has.
Any questions for Paul? Thank you, Paul. Teresa.
Hello, everyone. So we are starting the STIP cycle, the 22 STIP, and you saw the shares. We sent them to Caltrans to put in their book item, the draft shares. So Keith Duncan will go through the fund estimate, and we can ask, if you have questions regarding the shares, we can ask them at that time. So we're also going to be presenting the draft STIP guidelines. As you know, we have two sections on the guidelines, the specific guidelines as to how we're planning on developing the 22 STIP, and then the permanent guidelines, which are the long guidelines, that those don't change very much. But there are three sections of those guidelines that I kind of want to bring to your attention. The first section is it's section 14 regarding project study reports. I added clarifying language for what is an acceptable PSR. In the 2020 STIP, we had some issues, and we didn't program some projects because there were not appropriate PSRs. And we talked about PSR equivalents, and so that is clarifying language on section 14. On section 20, submittals of RTIPs. We want to require all RTIPs discuss the most significant interregional highway and intercity rail needs within the region, as well as the most significant multimodal corridor deficiencies within the region and any state routes within the region that might be potential candidates for highways to boulevard conversion pilot program. And then section 34, it's regarding the interregional program objectives. We've been talking a lot about gaps, and for the interregional program to identify gaps. So we are requiring the ITIP it says projects that have previously received ITIP funds in the last 10 years for pre-construction but have not been fully funded through construction. They need to provide an assessment. They need to develop this assessment of functional gaps within priority interregional facilities identified in an approved ITSP, and in particular, identify deficiencies within the interregional multimodal corridors, and as well as a discussion on possible highways to boulevard pilot programs to convert underutilized highways in the state into multimodal corridors. We are still in discussions with Caltrans, and if you haven't had a chance to look at the language, I invite you to do so and provide me comments in the next, I will tell you a deadline, I don't know when, because I'm also having a workshop on July 19th so that we can talk about the fund estimate, the shares, and talk about the guidelines. And at that point, I will say by when you should provide comments. That is all I have on the STIP guidelines. Do you have any questions? Rachel, is there an underlined strike version? Yes, there is, Rachel. Because of the remediation issue, there's a link to the book item that takes you to the strike through in bold version. Okay, you can see what I added and what I struck through in bold.
Yvonne, this is Adrienne. I have a question for
Yeah.
Teresa. So just getting back to your comments on the ITSP and the gap closure projects needing to be included in the ITSP, would you consider projects that are listed in the current ITSP as well as the draft ITSP? Because I think we're kind of in a cusp situation here where the ITSP isn't going to be approved until after projects are submitted, right? Or it's like
right.
time frame. So
well,
could it be from either the current ITSP or the draft?
You know what? I know we're in a super weird, odd place, right? And that is the concern that I have. That is my concern, that a project has to be in an approved ITSP.
Mm-hmm.
But how can we react if we do not have an approved ITSP?
Right.
So that is why we're still in discussions with Caltrans. Right now I have approved ITSP because that's really what the law requires. But then the ITIP, the draft ITIP, I'm going to get it before the final ITSP.
Right.
You're going to get a board approval on your projects before that is final. So I don't know, Adrienne. As I said, we are still in discussions because those are very valid concerns that I've been raising with Caltrans all along. And hopefully there is an ITSP discussion later on in the agenda. So maybe we'll hear from Caltrans.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Adrienne.
Yeah, Teresa, this is Mike with NCTC. And I guess that's kind of one of the challenges is, prior to the 2015 ITSP update, the 1998 ITSP actually identified and defined sort of the key corridors, where the 2015 update, took more of a broad approach and just made those big, broad corridors. So it generalized a little bit more. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. And I know Scott's on the agenda later, but yeah, the ITIP is definitely going to be a challenge this year. I know Caltrans intends to release the kind of a criteria from the new update prior to completion of the update and get some comments on that. But then like our inputs due to the districts on, our projects, and Scott can talk about the timing, but it's a really tight time frame to turn that all around, and it's a little bit problematic, but just a little extra.
Yeah, I really share those concerns. I am concerned from our part because are we going with the last approved? Then that would be the 2015. What do we do? I don't know. So like I said, we're still discussing with the department. Look at the language. Please look at those two sections, section 20 and section 34, and provide your comments. I try to address a lot of the concerns, and we've had concerns. We've been talking about those gaps. We've been talking about corridors we've started. Are we going to complete them? Are we not? And if not, let's have a discussion as to, we're not moving forward. And that is okay as long as we have that discussion. So I will be sending out a save the date, but I'm telling you now, it is the 19th, okay, July 19th. I'm thinking 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but just save the date right now, and I'll send something out probably by Friday once the commission's over, okay? Before I turn it over to Lori, I'd like to make an announcement. We've, Casey Ruggiero, she works for me. She will, we've promoted Casey, and she will be, I will be handing her the STIP. I'm leaving the STIP.
Wow.
So we will continue working on the STIP together through the 22 STIP. But yeah, she will be the primary contact for the STIP soon. Okay. Meanwhile, you'll still have to put up with me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Teresa. Any other questions? Thank you. Lori. Lori. Is Lori with us?
So Lori's been having some audio trouble. I think she's on the phone. So maybe we can move on to the next person. And if we can't get her back, hopefully I can always present for her.
Alicia.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Yes. Just a really quick LSR update for everyone. As a reminder, fiscal year 21-22 eligibility is due, or submittals are due on July 1st at 11:59 p.m. We do have subsequent eligibility that will be due on September 30th. And as a reminder, they will not lose any portion of their funds if they come in for subsequent eligibility. There have been a large number of agencies that we've spoken to who are going to wait for their annual budgets to be adopted before they do their list. And so they are going to be coming in for subsequent eligibility. So we do know that. We've sent another updated status check and tracker out to Yvonne and Woody and asking them to share out with everybody and all of you just to help us get the word out and make sure that we're not losing anybody in case there have been changes on any of the local entity ends that we weren't aware of. But overall, I can tell you that we are seeing vast improvements with the quality of the submittals coming in, with less than 2% being non-compliant, which is a major improvement in prior years where they've had to go back and take additional action on their resolutions in order to be compliant with statute. So kudos to all the local agencies and their hard work. And that's it for me, unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, any questions for Alicia? All right, I think we got Lori back.
Okay, you got me, Yvonne? Am I here? Okay. Okay, hi, everybody. So for the ATP, I was going to talk about two things. First, on the agenda, we have the ATP augmentation framework. This is the draft framework. So I don't know, I can't remember if Paul talked about this, but so the budget is not signed yet. It was approved by the Senate and Assembly on June 14th, and the $500 million for the ATP was in the budget at that point, but it has not been signed by the governor. And so we're having to be a little bit careful about how we talk about the augmentation since it's not definite yet. So in my speaking points, I'm going to say a couple times that this is a draft and a framework, and it's only valid if that 500 million ends up in the budget. And but we wanted to put something out as an info item at this meeting because if the 500 million stays in the budget, we're going to have to move very fast to program these funds. So the framework has some basic points on how we plan to utilize the funds. We'll follow the 50-40-10 split. We will fund projects that were submitted in the 2021 ATP, you know, some basic things like that, and a schedule. So the schedule that we are proposing is to have a workshop on July 8th And that is just to work out details. I think this is going to be pretty straightforward, but stakeholders always think of things that we hadn't thought of that we need to put in the guidelines. So I think it's important to have a workshop. And then we would post the draft guidelines on July 13th, and then post recommendations for the statewide small urban rule on July 15th. And then at the August meeting, we would have the adoption of the guidelines at the same time as we adopt the statewide and small urban and rural components. So that is not an ideal schedule, but that's really the only way we could do it, so we don't lose too much time in allocation in that first year for projects that will get programmed in augmentation. So again, this is going to be an info item, and it's just going to be, we're calling it a draft framework. So any questions?
Have you heard of any target date of the budget being signed?
I think it has to be signed by the end of the month.
Okay.
Did you hear me? End of the month.
Yeah. All right. So we should be soon enough.
Yeah, and I think Paul has said that it has to be in print for 3 days. So maybe we'll see something Friday or Saturday, maybe. Paul is pretty confident that the 500 million will remain in the budget for the ATP, but you know, there's still a lot of negotiations going on.
Okay. Any questions for Lori?
Lori, it's Rachel. Just one quick question. So one of the things you guys talk about is the deliverability review as being a major factor. Does that mean that the project's deliverable in fiscal year 21-22 or during the life of that cycle?
Are you talking about that when we're talking in the project selection criteria, we talk about deliverability?
Yes.
No, that's actually not what we're talking about. There is that a few of the projects that will likely be recommended if we get the augmentation through our original evaluation. We need to clarify some things on the scope. So we just put that in there because we have a few projects that we want to meet with the implementer.
I think we lost you, Lori.
There. So we plan to use the same programming years as the regular ATP.
Great, thanks.
Anything else for Lori?
Yvonne, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hi, Jose Luis here from SACOG. Just to add, what I heard from our state ledge person at SACOG is that, they need to sign by the end of the month, but they don't have to. They could wait, but they get docked their pay, so it's not likely that they'll wait.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lori.
Okay. Can I say my other thing now, Yvonne?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is everybody's favorite topic, which is time extensions. So we noticed this meeting in particular that time extensions have gotten kind of lax, I guess I would say. And I think that's mostly because of COVID, and you know, it was just really hard to for everybody to stay on schedule. But we had to do some background checking on some of the time extensions for ATP allocation, and some of them seem to be using. There was a lot of generic COVID. Just give me as many months as I can take, and we understand that, but I think for the next couple meetings, we're gonna try to clean that up a little bit. So we're gonna clamp down on time extensions. Everybody knows this happens like every couple of years or so. So we'll be, Alika's gonna get really tough on the time extensions. So So everybody needs to be nice to her. And also the RTPAs, if you can help your agencies at all in their putting together their time extensions, that's always useful, since you all know a lot more that's going on at the commission level. So I'm sure that's helpful to them. Any questions?
And just, can I follow up? Can I say something? Just so you know, the interim timely use of funds policy that the commission had adopted will end after June. Then we go to the regular timely use of funds policy. So just want to make sure everybody's aware that the excuse of COVID will no longer be valid after June. Just give me anything, COVID, that's what we used to see.
Yeah, I signed a paper this morning that says I don't have to wear a mask anymore. So COVID's over, apparently. So no more COVID.
All right.
Okay.
If I could ask another question. So RTPAs and sponsors be a lot more thoughtful / strict about the justifications for time extensions. And yet we're not, I guess we'll still see COVID justified time extensions perhaps, but we just don't have COVID level lengths. We don't have the generous length of time as before.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just
Sorry,
answered my
Jose.
own question, I think. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
External
and
processing.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's kind of gotten lost is that on the time extensions, we used to look for a connection between whatever the issue was and the amount of time that was asked for the extension. Like you need 4 more months for permits, so you ask for, I don't know, 5 more months or something, so we could see that connection. Now a lot of them say the agency was struggling with COVID stuff, so, and that's it. So that's what we're looking for, more of a specifics and a way that we can more truly justify the extension. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Road charge, Hannah.
Yeah, hi. Actually, this is what I wanted to give you an update on was the annual survey that the Mineta Transportation Institute does. So the Mineta Transportation Institute is a research institute that's part of San Jose State University. And we rely on their research at the commission a lot. Most recently, they did a report on the impact of zero emission vehicle adoption on future state revenues. And we rely on them for road charge too, but they're looking for someone to partner with them, and they're looking for funding for an annual survey that they do. They've done 12 of them in the past, and it polls Californians to see what public opinion is about taxes, mainly transportation taxes. So this last one was on public opinion on federal transportation taxes and fees. And they're wanting someone to partner with them on the research and on the survey, on funding the survey and developing the survey for at least 3 years. It's about $100,000 a year. And it has 3 sets of questions. So the surveys survey 3,500 Californians. They have some core questions about, like, how much do you know about transportation? What's the transportation system quality? Things like that. They have some variable questions that they would work with their partners to ask and develop, depending on what you wanted to focus on. And then they have some socio-demographic data that they include. So it's a good survey, and we think it's really useful. I mean, we use it, but we just don't have the money in our budget right now to fund that. And so we just wanted to present it to the group. If anybody is interested in this research and wants to partner with them, then just email me, let me know, and I can reach out to them. They have a 1-pager about it too. So if you're interested, I can always send it to you. And that's basically it.
Thank you, Hannah. All right, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. First, I actually wanted to thank you, Yvonne, for your partnership as the RTPA moderator over the past 12 months. You've always been a great partner to our team, and we definitely wanted to extend a sincere thank you for your tenure as moderator. And on that note, extend a welcome to Dawn as moderator, upcoming moderator, and Ryan as vice moderator. My team and I are really looking forward to working with you both in your new roles over the next year. I also wanted to thank every agency that had to complete a baseline agreement for their SB1 funded project. I know that this is a very time-consuming process at the regional level, as well as the district Caltrans level and at Caltrans headquarters, but I can say that the baseline agreements uphold a very strong purpose and value when it comes to accountability and transparency in spending SB1 funds. All baseline agreements that were due by the June CTC deadline have been reviewed and are on the agenda and being recommended for approval. So I really wanted to extend a great thank you for those of you that contributed into that effort. And on a similar note, I wanted to let everyone know that I will begin working with the Caltrans SB1 office, as well as with my team, on some possible revisions to the accountability and transparency guidelines, which were last adopted, I want to say back in March 2018. So they've been in place for several years now. And I'm tentatively planning to hold a workshop on revisions to the accountability and transparency guidelines sometime this fall, and hoping to get these revised guidelines adopted at an upcoming CTC meeting, maybe this fall or this winter. And I'll put details out specifically about that shortly, which will obviously include feedback from our stakeholders in a public forum. Peter, I saw your hand go up for the accountability item. So yeah, if you have a question, I'd be happy to.
Yes, yeah, thanks, Matthew. So I was just going to say that the accountability guidelines have something in them that started with the active transportation program, I think it was, which was the requirement for reporting, like post-completion project reporting. And so it's kind of a cutting edge sort of a thing. And so I think it would be a good idea to kind of look at how that's going and how can that be improved, because it was such an innovation in the first place. One of the issues I know that, although I don't know if there's that much to be done about it, but one of the issues has been just, well, I guess the main issue is if there's what's being done with the data. I would think that there would be a lot of useful information that CTC now has from a lot of different projects on how they actually perform. And I know there's been some issue where it's hard sometimes to know if it's really a success because you're only a year or so after construction and maybe a lot of the things haven't really sunk in yet, but there still might be a lot of good data, and so it'd probably be worth looking at like how that's just being used in general for the good of transportation planning.
Yeah, no, Peter, that I think that's really good insight. I know I won't speak necessarily to the findings we have on ATP unless my colleagues Lori or Teresa want to jump in. But I can say that, yeah, the thought behind reporting on project completion and progress over the course of years is certainly something, at least in some of the other programs, that hasn't yet come into fruition. I think we just started getting project completion reports for the first cycle of SB1 funded projects within the past 6 to 12 months. And so I know that provision is something that was certainly meant to look backward and kind of show some of the progress that these projects have made. And so I think for ATP, which obviously has had several more cycles under its belt, we certainly can take a look at that. I know my ATP colleagues have a lot of data on their hands and are, I'm sure, coming up with different ways to kind of tell the ATP story. And so I can connect with them, and certainly that can be a part of the conversation as a whole. when we revisit the guidelines.
Yeah, right. I think that's important. I know, and just mention a little on ATP. I know one of the issues for years has been just a lack of counts on like bicycle and pedestrians. And this is something where now there should be quite a few counts being done, and probably a lot more than ever has been done before.
On that particular note, I know that the pandemic, I think, has really had an impact on our ability or regional jurisdictions' ability to perform counts, considering several, or if not most, school districts were under stay-at-home orders and distance learning. But that's definitely something that I think should be coming back this coming fall as schools reopen and people are biking a lot more. Yeah, is that Lori?
So yeah, you're exactly right, Peter. We were kind of making some headway into coming up with some good data there, and we had the interim counts guidance, and we were getting to where we were getting some counts, and this is all being compiled in the quarterly reports, and then we had to give everyone kind of a grace period on counts during the COVID. So hopefully we'll get back onto where we can start collecting some really good data on the ATP, because it does really take a long time to get enough data to tell you something about what's going on in the program and the projects. Sorry, Matthew.
No, thanks, Lori.
Hey, anything else for Matthew?
I just really quick on the workshop front, just turning everyone's attention. We're going to do our first SB1 competitive program workshop on Tuesday, August 24th at 1 p.m. It's going to be all 3 competitive SB1 programs. So it'll be congested corridors, local partnership, and trade corridor enhancement program, kind of to set the tone for each of the individual program workshops that will commence in September. I don't believe we have sign-up details on our workshops page quite yet, but I plan on getting that posted and sent out through the RTPA group as well in July. And kind of in line with Teresa's update that Casey will be taking over the STIP, I'll be announcing a new member to our SB1 team before the next RTPA meeting. Actually, we'll have a new member joining our team working on the congested corridors program. So I look forward to introducing her and having a lot of you get to know our new team member. And I will continue to be heavily involved in congested corridors as well as the other SB1 programs. But Rachel, I see your hand went up.
I think I have an easy question, which is just generally when you think the next cycle of competitive grants will be awarded. Is it kind of the spring of 2023 or fall of 2022, or do you have any guess on when call for projects might happen?
So we're starting guidelines discussions right now, and I do believe I kind of pointed towards it in the announcement that we sent out a couple months ago. But I think in the document I say we plan to get guidelines adopted for the next cycles next summer, so summer of 2022, and then adopt. And so obviously when guidelines are adopted, that initiates a call for projects, and then adopt the programs. I know we would really like to aim for before the fiscal year 23-24 starts, because I think that's the first fiscal year for the new program cycles. So that would mean we would be tentatively aiming to adopt the programs by the June 2023.
Okay, great. And then I just wanted to appreciate you and your staff and everyone in headquarters that helped with the baseline agreements, and especially our district staff. It was time consuming, you are correct. But I really appreciate your responsiveness and openness, and I'm sure other regions have the same experience.
A huge thank you goes out to the district staff. I know that there was a heavy lift of coordinating from headquarters, from Caltrans headquarters, but the district staff were responsible for a lot of the, facilitating between the actual implementing agencies if it wasn't Caltrans. And so And actually, believe it or not, my team, I do want to thank Christine and Hannah as well. They reviewed a lot of baselines in a very short period of time. So we're very pleased to recommend them for approval and hope to kind of look forward to making the baseline process hopefully more efficient in cycle 3. But that is, unless I have any other questions, Yvonne, that is my total update.
Thanks. Anything else for Matthew? Good. All right, is Bill, yeah, before we move on, at the end of the agenda, I did have, since I do have commission staff here, is there any insight as to the future format of CTC meetings as restrictions have been lifted? Any idea as to when we'll be meeting in person?
Teresa, I mean, you and I probably have the same amount of information. Obviously, this June meeting is still entirely virtual, and I know we are planning for like a hybrid meeting come August. My understanding is that if we do go hybrid, which means there would be some in-person element, it would be likely in Sacramento to kind of allow CTC administrative staff, to kind of operate close to home so that we can try to get back to it. So we're looking for a hybrid meeting, I believe, in August, but I can follow up with Doug Remedios to confirm that with this group.
Teresa, looked like you were going to say something. No? All right. Okay. Is Bill Higgins with us? Once, twice. All right, moving on. Caltrans, Keith, budget and allocation update. STIP fund estimate, all the goodies.
All the fun stuff. All right, am I coming through okay? Am I coming through okay,
Yes.
Yvonne?
Yes.
Okay, good. I always get worried now. Ever since a couple meetings ago, I couldn't hear it, got shut off. Hey, everybody, happy Tuesday. Keith Duncan, again, Caltrans budgets. For tomorrow's budget and allocation capacity update, we'll provide some of our normal status report information. Through May, the commission's allocated about 61% of their total $7 billion allocation capacity across all of the programs. It's a little lower than what we would normally see. We'd normally see anywhere from 70 to 75% allocated at this point in time. So we do know the meeting is quite busy over the next couple days. So we're looking forward to seeing another well over $1 billion allocated so we can get that money to work. As part of tomorrow's presentation, we'll also provide a revenue update. The good news is overall, from a bottom line across all transportation revenue sources from the state's perspective, it's meeting projected revenue levels. Gas excise tax is still a bit down. The good thing is May came in a little higher as compared to the prior months. With the state reopening, that's a good thing, but it is still below what was originally projected for the current fiscal year. Diesel excise, weight fees, diesel sales, transportation and road improvement fees are all up a bit higher. So that's the good thing across just overall net zero compared to overall projections. Part of the presentation will also include, as we get into the next 21-22 fiscal year, I know Lori hit on it earlier, we know we have a state budget. The legislature did pass a budget by the June 15th deadline. Built into that approved budget was that the ATP $500 million. There's also a little less than $1 billion of federal funding. A lot of folks do ask where that money come from. A lot of that is associated with the CRISA money that we received back in December. Originally, we were going to try and get it into the current fiscal year, but it was just built into the May revised budget for this upcoming fiscal year. So we can just get that funding readily available, knowing that it's going to take a little bit of time to get the funds allocated. So that is built in, about $1 billion, give or take, is built into the budget to accommodate for that COVID Relief Act money that we received. Also, as we go into the next fiscal year, we'll also be presenting the draft allocation capacity. I know I'll touch on the 22 fund, the STIP fund estimate here in a moment, but we will be presenting the draft allocation capacity across all of the transportation programs. We are, even though revenues are down as a result of the pandemic and we're recovering, we are still basing everything on, at least for the STIP and the SHOP, we are still basing it on the 2020 fund estimate, which is pre-pandemic revenue levels. We still feel everything is in place to be able to continue to deliver at that pre-pandemic level across all transportation programs. So we're excited to continue with that effort. Everyone knows August redistribution is coming up. I know our friends from local assistance are coming up right after me, so they might be hitting on it. So we're definitely, hopefully, looking forward to August redistribution being another high delivery, just as last year was our highest amount ever, or highest amount over the last 10 years. And then the FAST Act obviously is set to expire, so we're definitely eagerly awaiting all the different negotiations going on at the federal level to see what we can do about getting a new act in place. Next item, the 2022 draft STIP fund estimate. That was released along with the additional CTC agenda items this past Friday. Most of you have heard this general spiel over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of communication with the districts and related to the ITSP, but it's about a week late. We had originally planned to get it out about a week and a half ago. Part of the challenge has been, as everyone knows, in May, the commission approved our assumptions for the fund estimate development process. Since then, the May revise came out, reduced gas excise tax revenue was part of that. So trying to see what we can do to sharpen our pencils, get those erasers to see what we can try and eke out as much funding as possible. So that takes us a little extra time, as well as we're seeing a lot more, as already been touched on, time extensions, seeing a lot more projects being pushed out of the fiscal year. So trying to see what we can advance to see what available capacity. General spending plans are kind of spreading out. This isn't an exact number, but when it comes to projects being allocated from a capital perspective, we might see about 20% spent in year one and another 30 to 35% in year two. We're actually seeing spending trends drop to anywhere from 10 to 15% in year one and almost 25% in year two. So seeing those spending trends drop, is it related to the pandemic? A little bit of a slowdown over this 1 to 2 year period, and then we'll pick back up. So trying to take that into account. So overall numbers for the period as included within the STIP, about 728 million as compared to about, I believe it was 560, 570 in the 2020 fund estimate. So that's an increase, not a major increase, but there was an increase. And then the shop is pretty consistent with the last, with the 2020 fund estimate. The next steps, Teresa's already hit on, we'll have the workshop in July, I think July 19th. So the fund estimate part of that discussion, provide additional details to help everybody out. And then the plan is for the fund estimate to be adopted at the August commission meeting. Obviously then with the end result, hopefully the STIP to be adopted in March or spring of next year. So that's about it. Any questions anyone may have that I can try to answer?
Peter has his hand up.
Yes. So Keith, I remember in mid 2020, I think it was, Caltrans was saying that that although no projects needed to be delayed at the time, that over multiple years there was a hit to the gas tax. I don't recall the number. I see the number 1.5 billion is in my head, but I'm not sure if that's the number. Is that still, is that pretty much what the fund estimate is reflecting? Is there still something like a $1.5 billion loss to the gas tax due to COVID?
Yes, that is still, the projection was about 1.5 initially. I think it dropped slightly down to about 1 billion, but part of the fund estimate is taking those reductions into account. The latest projections for the gas excise, it's a give or take about 3 to 4 years before we return to pre-pandemic revenue levels in relation to just gas excise. So the fund estimate for this go around for the 2022 does take into account those lower revenue levels.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for Keith? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Dee, local assistance update.
Yvonne, thank you. It's Dee Lamb from Local Assistance. Really appreciate everybody. Really quick, I know I've got quite of a team right here to present a lot of key areas for local assistance today. I think what I'd like to say is last time I reported on a real slow, gosh, my area of concern is our slow delivery on OA. I think I reported out last time at 47. And since then, I believe we're probably at 52. So Jaya can, give you more of the current numbers. Now, I do know many of you here have participated with local assistance in Sajaya on the agreement webinars and looking at innovative ways to draw down this OA. But I definitely have asked the team to really, buckle down on how we can better work with you, sponsoring agencies, so on and so forth, and finding some innovative ways to draw this down. So that is kind of like my first and foremost on my mind. So in addition to operations, I know we report out on a lot of our key milestones and operational matters, which are super, super important to project delivery, completely understand. But I do also want to say that we are also taking some proactive measures with our engagement with you. I just wanted to kind of share with everybody, we may be calling on you for more focused interviews coming up. And what this is it's going to feed into an organizational effectiveness study that I want to launch for local assistance. I know on various committees, we've talked about improvements, we've talked about policy. I want to, really hone in on what that connective picture looks like. I really want to thank our partners at CTC, at FHWA, of course, our regions, and our agencies, our districts that, over, I think, the course of the last year or so, I've definitely seen engagement stepped up. I really appreciate that a lot. And I think with that, I won't take too much more time. I will pass it on to the team. Again, we've got a lot of areas that we want to cover today. So I think, Sajaya, with that, over to you.
Thank you, Dee. Yvonne, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so you should be seeing your OA utilization a Word document.
Yes.
All right, so a quick update on the OAUs. Right now, our OAUs it is 52.9%. That's as of yesterday. Remaining OA is about 47.1%. We have about $300 million of project in queue, which includes projects in FEMAS, in FADS, in the district's queue. And a huge chunk of that is FTA transfer. And we're not seeing a lot in the district queue. It's only about 33 million, and we're not seeing new E76s come through. We had asked the districts to get all the obligatable E76s into the system by the end of this week. So when we do a pull for August redistribution, we will have that list. But if we do that pull as of now, we haven't used our OAA by like 250 million. So we don't have a list for AR. So now just to give you a sense of the trend over the last 5 years, you can see that black line there, that's this year. And if you look at the trend from May to June, it's almost a flat line there. The concern is if you look at the other years, even if it was about the same percentage, it was peaking around this time, but you don't see the peak this year. Okay, so I want to thank everybody who attended the loan agreement meeting on the 14th, and we had some items that I needed to get back to you on. One of that was the regions asked if they can loan urban RSTP to apply on bridge projects within those urban regions, and they can be repaid back. We think we can do that now. So today I sent a message through the RTPA group. So if you're interested in doing that loan, let me know. We'll look at the bridges within your region and we can come up with an agreement to finalize that. And we also need those E76s in the system soon. So act on it like today. I have highlighted the regions that have percentage OA delivery below 50%. And you can see what those regions are. I know we're at free for all OA, but part of the discussion in the OA BMP meeting has been we constantly rely on the larger regions to over-deliver OA, and we want all the regions to kind of be responsible for their share of OA. So for those of you that are already working on loan agreements, I know I've seen a few come through. That's great. We're also working with FHWA on the urban RSTP loan, and they've approved it conceptually, and we're going to send them a request letter maybe even today. And that we're hoping will happen this fiscal year. So we're trying to do a lot of things to help with this OA. Here are the numbers. I'm going to set up another meeting on the 25th. That's this Friday. I will send out a WebEx invite through Yvonne. So we can have the loan discussion again and also look at which regions are interested in loaning urban RSTP to the bridge program. So that's all I have. Do we have any questions? You can see that the last line on that table there, 435 million in CMAC remaining, 271 urban RSTP, and 69 flex. These are the apportionment balances.
I don't have a question, but just in case someone with a bunch of CMAC doesn't show up to that Sejaya meeting, SACOG is interested in borrowing CMAC and RSTP. So give me a call, send me an email if your region's at all interested. Even if you don't know how loans work, just hit me up. I'll tell you how it works.
Yeah, and we're looking at, I don't want to call specific regions, but still Riverside, San Bernardino, a lot of urban sitting in we know big bridge projects there, high cost bridge projects. So if you're thinking about loaning to the bridge program, please let me know. Okay, with that, I'll stop sharing.
Sujaya, this is Kenny with MP. I was curious if you had done any more or found out any more information about the idea of obligating a project, or at least ACing a project prior to CTC allocation when there's other funds that CTC needs to allocate.
Yeah, so I did have internal discussions on that, but then the specific project that you're referring to has a co-op link to it. And I understand that co-op is going through some modifications that makes it tricky. But you could get an AC authorization like in our system, and the moment we do that, we could also get another E76 for converting that AC. Just put it in the system so we capture the money, even though we'll do it late. And I also heard you want to swap funds. So your preferred route was ACing it and then swapping the funds later. If that's not true, we can have an offline discussion.
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up. And then we also had a discussion too at the meeting about LA, who has $230 million hanging about. Do we know if they're going to be at least obligating that amount?
LA has a huge FTA pending, almost 113 million, I think. So that'll take some of the money off the books, but they might still have room. I don't want to speak for them.
Ooh, sure. Piggyback question. I think you said when you added up all of the pendings, we're still short.
Yes.
Just now you made it sound like that pending FTA transfer from LA might not be part of the count. Is that part of the count or not part of the count?
That is part of the count. That is part of the 303 million, which is in queue.
Dang it. So where's Superman? Where's the money going to come from?
Right now, we're not using our OA based on the queue, and there's nothing for August redistribution. We need like $250 million worth of projects.
So if the AC request comes from MTC and they borrow 20 million, that's 130 million more? So yep. Then, and if I'm just counting that on my own ledger, what was it? We needed how much? 200 how many?
250 roughly. So we would still need about 125.
Hey, can you go back to that sheet you were sharing?
Yep.
I'm interested in the ones you didn't highlight. So the neat thing about this is you're highlighting regions that are percentage-wise kind of low, but there's some that are percentage-wise fine.
But I am also, hold on. I am also, looking at slightly different timestamps on this. The apportionment balances are of today. The OA delivered is as of May 30th, but it's not a huge difference though, because our OA use line has been flat.
There's some they have delivered high, but they still have a bunch more money. Well, maybe that's more for me. Hey, is it?
No, but it's apportionment versus OA.
Yeah, but you don't need OA to obligate apportionment, like that CMAC money that belongs to Kern. All right. Maybe.
Yeah, from your perspective, yeah, that's useful if you're looking for that money. Yes. The intent of putting it there is saying my intent was, well, if you haven't used your share OA, maybe look at loaning your apportionments.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Any other comments on this?
Thank you, Sujaya. And we'll get the meeting invite shortly for Friday. All right. Robert, are you with us? HIP update and also earmark repurposing status.
Yeah, thank you, Ivan. So as far as the HIP updates, I do sound like a broken record, but those funds are still outstanding in the 17-18 fiscal year. With our latest report, we still have about $33 million on the books that have plans to obligate. And of course, as I reported, the SCAG region has the majority of that. So we've been assured that they have a plan to obligate those funds. I know Jose Luis has been reaching out to some agencies. He's had some success. And so looking at my spreadsheet, right now we're down to about $416,000 of agencies that have not really been responsive. They're just not much funding on the books with those smaller agencies. I think StanCog is the one on our list that has about 405,000, of which Jose Luis reported that they did not go with the loan agreement, so they have maybe other plans for those funds, but right now we don't know that. So, so right now we have a lot of plans to obligate on our spreadsheet. As you know, are the time to get those projects programmed and getting them obligated. Those timelines are approaching fast. I think the earliest to get the RFAs into the districts is July 23rd. And I think August 20th is our deadline to get the RFAs into headquarters to meet the federal fiscal year deadlines. As you know, FHWA shuts down their system at the end of the year. And so those are the deadlines have been shared to the districts, have been probably shared out to the agencies. So
did you repeat those dates, Robert? July 23rd?
Yeah, July 23rd is the final date to get the authorizations into the districts.
Okay.
And August 20th is the date that for the information that needs to, for the RFAs to get to headquarters, for them to do their processing to get, so that we can meet the deadlines before FHWA shuts down.
Just quickly, those are tentative deadlines. We don't have the deadlines released from FHWA yet. So if we have an additional day or two, we might try to push it.
Okay, tentative. Thank you, Sajaya. I should have said that tentatively, but just be as it may, they approach fast, and so a day here or there. But it's so obviously our big concern is the SCAG funding, and so that's something we're working with District 7 on. So as far as the another thing, we've been talking to FARDAD over in federal budgets, and obviously, as you know, we split the funding up with the state side, and so he mentioned that he would like to, instead of us going through this every year, maybe for these next couple years, to kind of set some drop dead dates on this HIP funding, because, you know, the state can use HIP shares as well. And so, and maybe there could be some conversations, and I'll talk to Mark and Dee about this, but he would like to, you know, set up some time to where that, because obviously we don't want to leave any funding on the table, and so it's just an FYI at this point, as far as the following fiscal years. As you know, we have HIP funding that'll lapse with each federal fiscal year as we progress through the HIP shares. As far as the repurposing, as you know, we've been going through that exercise for a number of years. My staff is working on the 2021 as we speak. I know we typically post that information on the website, but you could probably look at the 2020 timeline and follow that. And I know we're a little bit late behind on that. We've a little short staffed in my ER and other federal fundings branch. And so the person that's running it now is trying to get up to speed. The one that ran it last year had moved on to another position, got promoted. And so it's one of those where we're trying to play a little catch up, but so they're working on it right now. But if you want to at least look at what, the timelines, you could look at the prior year, which is posted online. Again, there's also lapsing funds in that area, but not as significant right now. If you look on our website, if you look at the 2018 earmarks, we have just a couple agencies, really not much money. One of them is the County of Santa Barbara. That's got some funds that they've got to come in on for a project. There's a bunch of funds that they're trying to clean up for one project, and then another one from MTC. But those totals are like 324,000 and 481,000. So not a whole lot, but they are on the books and they're subject to lapse as well for September 30th. So, and that's on our website. We keep those posted as well. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Anybody? Thank you very much, Robert. Appreciate it. All right. Kelly, training day.
Okay. Thank you,
Oh,
Yvonne.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I did have a comment question for Robert.
Bet.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Just a quick pitch. If you didn't catch it from Robert, there's I've noticed a misconception, especially when I've talked to some of the rural counties out there. HIP funds can absolutely be transferred between regions. Notice Robert's nodding. They can absolutely be transferred between regions through loans, or if you just want to write a gift. It's a big old gift card that buys a lot of Starbucks. So if you're a county and you're hearing this and you're not sure how you're going to, or a region or RTPA, you're not sure how you're going to obligate your HIP funds that are expiring, you can loan them, transfer them between regions. The reason why you have a balance, besides not being able to obligate it on a project, is Caltrans has not been able to do like the standard RSTP exchange sort of thing on these HIP funds. But you can absolutely loan them, balance them. Robert mentioned it. SACOG has entered into loan fund agreements for expiring HIP funds with Colusa, Inyo, and Mono counties. It can be done, but I'll say when I talked to each of them, each of those counties was under the impression that they couldn't. So as they were doing the agreement with me, they're saying, "Are you sure, Jose Luis, that we can do this? Maybe I better check with Robert on this." I'm like, you can, trust me, you can. So if there's a misconception, you can absolutely loan or transfer or give your funds. You do not have to let them just expire and go back to, I don't know, Medicare. All right, that's it.
Thanks. Okay, Kelly.
Okay, let me get situated here again. So welcome everybody. Thanks for having us. So over the last couple meetings, we've talked about putting on a local assistance training day. And a couple months ago, we sent out a survey to the group, and we got close to 40 respondents, and everybody said, yes, let's do this. 100% response said. So we had the responses for what kind of training we'd like to do came back in the form of 20 different topical areas that cover all 7 offices in the division, with a lot of focus on programming and obligation authority and data sharing, but also you know, showing where the resources are for the members out there, for the local agency partners, local and regional partners out there. So we're trying to develop it. We're taking our time to develop a good program. One thing that did come out of the survey is that we're looking to do this maybe as a series over a quarterly series, so we can actually do more. We're going to do, Yvonne sent out a save the date for September 8th, and that's 8:30 to 12:30. And again, so about 4 hours, jam-packed full of information sharing between the 7 offices and you. We're going to be working over the next several weeks with you guys out there to find out if anybody's interested in doing a presentation on best practices, or whatever there is out there that you guys can do to train us. We don't want this to be all about Caltrans. We want to be good partners, and Caltrans can learn from everybody out there on some of the best practices, and help us think about things in new ways. So we've engaged with all the office chiefs. We've got a framework for an agenda starting up. We'll be reaching out. By the time of the next RTPA meeting, we should have a lot more information. Neil Peacock from my staff is here, and he can wave and say hi. He is my contact for this, and obviously you can work through Yvonne and Dawn, because we're going to keep Yvonne involved as much as possible, even though he's stepping aside from his current role. So thank you. And if there's any questions, I can leave it at that. And happy to answer any questions for you guys.
Thank you, Kelly. Very much appreciated. Any questions for Kelly? All right, moving on. Jose Luis Casares from SACOG had asked if you guys could touch on toll credits. Jose Luis, do you want to get more into your inquiry?
Yeah, I think I might be stealing some thunder then. Hey, D. So a long time ago, when I was just a child in state and federal programming, there was a guy who sat in your chair, Denix, and he was really beyond frustrated that rural off-system bridges weren't obligating their funds on the bridge program. And I mean, he was pulling his hair out trying to find, how do you get these rural counties to actually do their bridges? And the consensus at the Rural County Task Force workshop or meetings, that's not me. The consensus was this match, it's too much, 11.47. These rurals couldn't handle the match. If there was some way that the state could just pay 100% of the cost of the rural bridges, that would really help with delivery. And Denix said, no, we can't do that. And then someone whispered to Denix, have you heard of the toll credits system program thing? And Caltrans did a bunch of research into it. Next thing I knew, Caltrans took credit for something like $5.4 billion of toll credits, tolls that the state of California, that sponsors, that toll authorities in the state of California had taken, like the Bay Bridge, Golden Gate Bridge, and some places down in Southern California I haven't visited. That $5.4 billion waived the requirement for needing to match federal funds. And it was almost done exclusively to help out rural bridges. Now, these days, no one complains about the inability to deliver bridges. They're doing just fine. They're doing great. But it's been a while since, 2005 or something? And I was wondering if those toll credits are running out. And if they are, how do we renew them? Because SACOG, we use toll credits a bunch, and I'm getting a little nervous. That's my intro to the question.
I completely get it, Jose Luis. We've got troops on the ground, as you can see. I see Keith smiling. I see Mark smiling. So concern totally valid. I went back to the group and said, hey, who do we convene? What information do we have? So I'll toss it to you, Mark. Keith.
Yeah, I'll take the first go, and then Keith fill in the blanks. Keith, I did talk to Keith about the toll credits, and so you're right. So where are we on these toll credits? So at the end of this federal fiscal year, we are anticipating approximately $1.5 billion worth of toll credits. So on average, we use about 200 million toll credits per year. So if you're looking at that 1.5 billion using 200 million per year, we got about 7 years left in regard to the toll credits. So when do we need to start looking at applying for the next round of toll credits? So the last time we've done this, it took approximately 2 years to go through the application process of going through this on the toll credits. And so looking at if we still have the trend of 200 million per year, we're looking at maybe in 2023 that we would start the process of going through the applications for additional toll credits. But at this time, we definitely have quite a balance to last us for the next 7 years. And we are looking at when would be that appropriate time to start looking at applying for additional toll credits. And right now we're looking at maybe 2023, 2024. So just to reaffirm that, Jose Luis, 1.5 billion of toll credits on the books right now, and we're averaging 200 million per year. So we got about 7 years left with the current toll efforts.
Okay. So
any additional questions there you have?
I have a question, I guess, final point. So, hi everybody. Mark Samuelson, like, is the guy who got A+ in math all the time, and I'm very impressed by you and your team and your work. So I'm going to ask some questions, but I think they're just like it's an alley-oop for you to slam dunk this. My impression has been when we started, or at some point, there was like a heyday of toll credits. Like I think every HSIP project was using toll credits. A bunch of the shop was using toll credits. I don't know about STIP, but then at some point the HSIP is now like 100% swapped for state cash. The shop, I think, matches its own funds thanks to SB1. My impression is that the use of toll credits has slowed down, at least since the advent of SB1. Is your 200 million per year like average, like since 2005 to now, or is it? Did you adjust it for recent trends?
Good question. I may have to go back to Keith on where that trend was, but I think it goes back to when that 2005 period, and if we're looking at the trends. And so if you're asking if recent trends have showed less than that trend, I guess I can go back and look at that. I don't know if you have those numbers, Keith. All right, I can go back and
you know what?
It's just
We got about 15 or so minutes left. Why don't we put this on the meeting for the next RTPA, especially since there's zero danger of running out.
7 years is great. Yeah, next one sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. Let's keep it going. Who's next? ITSP update. Scott.
Hello, thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, Scott.
No problem. I know the topic's already interesting since you already talked about it a little bit already. So my name is Scott Sauer, the Office Chief for Multimodal System Planning here in headquarters. We are the lead for the ITSP. Quickly, you know, ITSP is the interregional planning document and the planning document for the ITIP. We are currently, of course, to give you the update on where we're on status, we're developing the draft at this point. We have an internal draft. We're reviewing it and hopefully get management approval as soon as possible. We want to have August 18th is when the plan's supposed to be out for review, 60 days of review. So October 18th and a deadline of December 31st to complete it. We're also working on the scoring criteria that you already talked about. We'd like to get that out earlier than the draft document for people to review. That all kind of depends on how quickly I can get my job done and get it through and get everyone reviewing it and get it approved. So that I'd like to get as quickly as possible, but that all depends on timing. So we'll work on that. Okay, so let's just dive into the big thing. You wanted to talk about the scoring criteria. So let's just talk about the plan itself. Some of the similarities at this point, granted, things can change. We're going to go through the draft document, but At this point, we still have the strategic interregional corridors. There hasn't been really any suggestion on changing those. They still connect the regions and they make logical sense. We still have priority interregional facilities. And at this point, there's minimal, if any, changes on the existing priority interregional facilities. So hopefully that remains that way and still about the same. So we don't expect a lot of changes in that, if any. And when I look at the scoring criteria for the ITIP, we still are focusing. I mean, the key is a project needs to focus on interregional travel, safety, freight movement, the economy, and regional accessibility are some of the key elements for that. That's been a driver since the 1998 plan all the way through the 2015 one, and that's still a big focus for this plan. Factors from the 2015 ITSP, I'm looking at my notes. If you see, I'm looking down. The 2015 ITSP, the criteria that we have in that document included climate change. It talked about mode shift. It talked about emergency evacuation, resiliency, all key things that we're looking at this point. Where some of those things have become a little bit more prominent. Climate change, where I think we have a few more policies, but still we had some of that in the 2015 scoring criteria. And emergency evacuations, obviously the last few years, it's been highlighted the need for that. So that's still massively important. Some of the things we're looking at for the scoring criteria, they're a little bit different from 2015, aren't anything that's really new to probably this group. We're looking at equity. How do we address underserved communities? We're looking at zero emission vehicle infrastructure, especially freight zero emission charging structure, how that's part of the project, how it connects to the projects. And also what the projects have impact on vehicle miles travel. Obviously, Senate Bill 743 is important. So those are going to be some of the new things that are be considered in the 2021 scoring criteria, but they're not anything new that we've been looking at for the last few years. So that we feel that those things are necessary for that. So like I said, we're going to get that out as quickly as possible. And August 18th is the public review of the document. And we'll definitely have workshops during the public review to get input from everybody. So that's the update. So now time for the questions. Any questions on the ITSP or the scoring criteria?
Questions for Scott? I know it came up earlier.
Yeah.
Who was it? Was it Teresa or Mike?
Yeah, with Teresa. I was listening to that conversation about the timing with the current one versus the future one. Obviously, we're going to have discussions with Teresa and her group on that to figure out all of that. We're hoping that the difference between this, our criteria is really not too drastic, but it does bring in stuff that we really need to. Sorry about that. Got paused for a second there. So it's just going to bring in new factors that really are things that we have to address anyway. So.
Mike Woodman, looks like your son has something to say. Put him on.
He always has something to say. But yeah, no real questions for Scott. Just really, we need to get that scoring criteria out as soon as possible so we can comment and get those comments back to you. Because we kind of need to see that to figure out, what projects we're going to be shooting forward to our district to submit to you. So, yeah, I mean, the faster we can get that out, the better. And I know hey, hold on one second, please. And I know with the 2015 ITSP update, we maybe went a little more general than the previous update. And I feel, this update is probably going to be kind of in that general, kind of just identifying the key corridors. Maybe in the next update, it'd be nice if, we got a little more specific and drilled down into the details of, what is our strategic plan for the interregional highways and the intercity rail, and list out some projects, or at least identify them rather than kind of leaving it vague. I know it, on one hand, it's good to have it broad because you can apply, but the devil's always in the details. So.
For that, just to respond to that, yeah, this is going to be still somewhat similar vein, level of detail. What we want to do is, instead of just once we're done with the document and pick it up a few years later, There will be a senior in my office that's going to be permanently on the ITSP. And so they're going to work with the districts and the partners to kind of fill in that blanks. We didn't want at headquarters to really do that planning. We want the districts and the partners to come with that planning. Hopefully this will give you a good understanding of the criteria. We'll work on that and we'll update that information as we go so that by the next ITSP, we'll have a better understanding of all the needs. But we really want it at the corridor level instead of, yeah, you don't want me to tell you what in Nevada City or down in, you know, in Calaveras County or wherever. You don't want me to tell you that. So it'll be, we'll work on that, but it does make this ITIP a little bit challenging. So we understand that.
All right, thanks, Scott.
No problem. Thank you.
Anything else for Scott? Thanks again for being here. Appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime. If you guys have questions and you have your district staff to work through this stuff, but if you want someone from my office, myself, to participate in any meetings or discussions, or if you have projects that you want to talk about, we can kind of give you a glance at what we're looking at. We'd be more than happy to work with you so that you're not surprised at the end, but we can work before the criteria comes out and help you as you guys need.
Well, and you've always been accessible and willing to present, and thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Kwan Yatman, Innovative Concept.
Yatman Kwan.
Oh, is that his? I'm sorry. Nobody's ever gotten my name wrong.
Hey, I apologize for butting in. I had on my agenda, it says I'm supposed to speak next on the draft construction general permit. Is that, am I at the end of the,
Wasn't that, was that different, Aaron, from?
Yeah, that was the construction industry. And
Okay.
I'm here to speak for Caltrans behalf, but
All right.
I'd like to wait till after Kwan's done. Would that be better?
It doesn't matter.
Whatever you want to do.
It sounds like you're ready. Take it away, Scott.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, my name's Scott Frederickson, and I work for Caltrans Division of Environmental Analysis, and I'm here to provide an update on the status of the reissuance of the statewide construction stormwater general permit by the State Water Resources Control Board. And it includes our Caltrans major concerns and our anticipated project delivery impacts. And if it's okay, I'll share a presentation with you. Let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Share the screen. Okay. Window. This is it, I believe, right here. Okay. All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So,
Yeah,
presentation outline.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
For the sake of time, we're running a little late. Can I just get that email to me and I can send it out to the RTPA group? We were informed earlier that you'll be presenting this tomorrow. Is that correct?
No, Phil Stolarski will be presenting this on Thursday to the CTC. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I do want to clarify one thing that Mike Quigley stated earlier. We have since found out, so we've been collaborating with the State Water Resource Control Board extensively, and we're working in good faith with them on our major concerns. We want to pursue approaches that are going to result in improved water quality and provide a clear path to compliance without jeopardizing the delivery of transportation infrastructure projects. So, that's our goal. And I think Mike had stated that the implementation date would be July of 2022, and the State Water Board has recently advised us that it's going to be July of 2023. Anyway, yes, I will email this to you. I just wanted to reiterate that we continue to work with the State Water Board to try to address our major concerns, but there are definitely impacts to, that could impact our budgets. And Mike Quigley mentioned the grandfathering. That's a big concern of ours. TMDL requirements, which he mentioned, and a few other things. But I should also point out that there are some things that are going to actually make things better. There's been some changes to that, but I'll tell you what, I'll email it to you. If anybody wants to stick around at the end, I'll give them the presentation if that's okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
All right. Thanks. I'll stop sharing.
Okay, Yatman.
Hey everyone, can you hear me clearly?
We can.
Great, thank you. So there's a few updates from Caltrans headquarters planning. Aaron will talk about the grant rewards a little later. Two items, the innovative concept. So your district counterparts already received an email, our district counterparts, your partners, received an email from us regarding the innovative concept. And what that is really Caltrans' way of thinking new ways to develop projects and initiatives across the state. And so we've tasked the districts to work with our partners, but as well as headquarters will be sending out an email to the MPOs and some of our local partners regarding how we were soliciting more kind of like ideas from you guys of initiatives, ideas, plans that you guys want to start thinking about, of how do we kind of set ourselves up for discretionary funding at the federal level. Not a secret, this Biden administration has been moving in a different direction in terms of climate change, equity, engagement, just be a little more innovative in terms of how we are going after funding. So really short synopsis here, but essentially, it is Caltrans' initiative to be a state leader in terms of how we are going to start thinking about projects and project development. There'll be more information in the fact sheet you guys sent out, and I can also send this out to Ivan here. He will distribute. But essentially, we are looking for your input. The due date is July 16th, I believe, for your ideas. Again, there'll be a fact sheet on PowerPoint associated with what I'm telling you guys right now. On a separate note, Caltrans data-wise, our planning division is also undertaking an initiative where we are gathering our MPO and regional partners to have a discussion regarding how we are procuring, storing best practices for data and modeling. And so there is a statewide working group that we're holding on July 22nd for our partners who have not received an invitation or anything from Caltrans for data-wise. I will also send this to Ivan for your invite. Basically, this is really a starting point in terms of how we are going to work together on data. And I know that in some regions, you may not have the financial resources or the staff resources to have kind of data setup or modeling. And again, this is where we were trying to have a statewide discussion. How do we do that? And I know that many of you and our districts as well have been test piloting Replica. And we know that you guys probably are testing a bunch of tools that we're not aware of. But again, it is a platform for us to share, what's kind of going on in that space. And not over promising. I know other Caltrans our Caltrans attendees here have talked a lot about money, but something is we are thinking about, how do we invest in that data realm with our partners? Because again, data is very expensive, so we want to know the best practices how to do it. Quickly spoke there. Is there any questions for me?
Any questions? All right. Thanks for being here. And I'll blast out the information you send my way.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Sorry, I got to go. Thank you.
All right.
I'll be quick.
And Aaron's got everything.
Yeah, I wish. Well, I get happy news, but when we talk about like billions of dollars, but in the planning realm, our sustainable transportation planning grants have been released today. There is a link on our website, and you'll be getting notifications if you applied, if you were awarded or non-award. It was obviously oversubscribed just like it normally is. And so we received 169 applications and we were awarded 59. We awarded $21 million in competitive funding the requests were almost 56,000 or 56 million. So it was almost double or more than double than what we normally can award. So just be on the lookout for the emails. It should have been sent out through our regional planning grant inbox. And then now it's like kicking off that you can start spending your funding once you have the OWP amended. And then if like you're not an RTPA or MPO, like a restricted grant agreement. So we'll be working with like you through the districts, but we're super excited that we saw this was probably like the coolest application process that we've seen, and innovative as well. And so for those that did not get awarded, most of the agencies are successful the following year because we do pretty extensive debriefings based on our evaluation criteria. So if you want to reapply, we are anticipating that we will be releasing the 22-23 in early September with an application deadline in like November, early November. It's still kind of, we're saying fall, which you never know. COVID's done a number on all of us. So, but be prepared, like knowing that we're not revising the grant guide. It's going to be as is, only the fiscal years are going to be changing. And we're gonna roll it out while we're helping those that got awarded and those that did not get awarded, so that hopefully we have successful applications moving forward. And then also, especially with COVID, we've seen an influx of extensions. We normally typically don't allow extensions, but this year has been, well, 2 years has been a little bit of a different mix. So if you are anticipating that you're going to need an extension, especially like we've talked about today, like data collection, like safe routes to schools and like active transportation, we've kind of had to like change scope of works and things like that, or extended it. But with extensions, like we try to utilize our money as much as we can. Planning money is not as much, obviously. And so we take those savings and then apply them to extensions. And then also, though, if we can't extend, like if there's such an influx of extensions, it taps into future year awards. And it's on a case-by-case basis. The criteria is in the grant guide. So, but just thinking ahead, knowing, you know, that this year might be like fiscal year is going to be transitioning, that just be a little bit more proactive so we can meet our fiscal deadlines, and work with your districts as well. So that's the biggest thing. And then all the award and non-award letters went out today, in addition to the MPO formula funds, which is $12.5 million. And then the competitive is $21.3 million. So it's a big thing for planning. But like I said, reach out to your districts. We're extremely excited to see what's going on. And then also what we're doing as well, that we started, maybe like a year and a half ago, is a closeout survey. So 15-16 was the first year that we kind of like were starting like with the closeout, and then 16-17, 17-18, especially with the transparency that we've talked about with SB1 funding. But it's also like trying to use data, like CTC has said, about what are lessons learned, what are best practices, and how can we put that information so you guys are successful. But then also like leveraging, once you're in the planning phase, like how are you successful to receive the next phases of funding, whether it's through the CTC, AHSC, REAP, LEAP, gosh, there's so much, CARB has a grant program. So we're really trying, we have like a working group that we've been working with just so we can make sure that you're successful, that these plans actually come to fruition. So good job, guys. You did awesome.
Any questions for Aaron? All right. I think that's a wrap. Anything else not on the agenda? All right.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, sir.
I wanted to thank you for leading us this year. You're going to be the first and only moderator, I hope, that had to conduct all virtual meetings. So we missed the opportunities to hang out with you after the meetings, but we're thankful for your leadership.
Hey, thanks for nominating me, Sarkis. I really
Was it me? Man, I'm so good at nominating moderators. It's great.
I have to say, Yvonne, you've dealt with all of us so well. Like you have to like balance like this crazy group of people, and even just doing your normal job. This is like double duty. Like
It was double the joy.
Yeah, okay. But from a Caltrans perspective, thank you. Like you were always on it. So thank you.
You were all a pleasure to work with. So with that, that's a wrap. Thank you all.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Yvonne.
Yvonne.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great job, Yvonne.
Bye, everyone.